In 1893, a unique event transpired, the Columbian Exposition, a grand event of immense proportion. It captured populations, domestic and foreign, for several months and then disappeared. It still lives in many mediums, yet something doesn't add up. The grandeur, the resources, the architecture. Why does this event, this World's Fair, not make sense? Maybe a different perspective is in order. Let's begin. I've been delving into the Columbian Exposition for many episodes, and for those that are new, this is a standalone episode. My opinion has changed and shifted as time has gone on. As of now, I believe this event itself is a psychological operation, which is then tied to the Tartaria and Old World groups, let's say, which are also largely psyops themselves. If you do not agree, that is quite alright, and I will attempt to make my case as to why these events, World's Fairs, are used as novelty spears to impale the curious and reel them into a perpetual wheel of questions. The alternative thinkers, the independent thinkers, who test the walls of reality are enticed, and then, for the most part anyways, don't leave. It's one thing to ask questions about the past, yet it's another to actually progress. It's Hotel California, or rather Hotel Tartaria, where you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Allow me to explain. At first glance, the World Expositions present themselves as an anomaly, a neoclassical diamond in the rough, and it's easy to wonder why these events would be held. The questions begin, and peeling back the curtain feels, well, it feels amazing. Like you're finally getting somewhere, getting to the truth. Almost like a freedom. But without a new game plan, you're not really free. You just seem to be frozen in the doorway. Awareness without a rebuild is not power. It seems to be more of a paralysis that's dressed up as insight. And many people go throughout their lives without asking, who built this treadmill I'm running on? Looking deeper into the systems that surround them every day. They swallow the rules, chase the goals someone else wrote, and mostly live on autopilot. And no wonder they stay stuck. They're just running on someone else's code, not their own. The independent thinkers don't do this though. The ones who think alternatively, but they fail in a different way. They actually question everything, the whole damn thing. And that's crucial. You can't fix what you won't see. But many of them get addicted to the ability to see through it. The I see through it high, and don't really move past it. This isn't a takedown of questioning everything. That skill it's a golden skill, and without it, nothing in this presentation will really even make sense. And seeing past the default story is step one of any real change. The problem is too many people treat step one like the finish line. And have you heard that the World's Fairs are a perfect starting point? They are a great introduction. However, has it also become the end point? You enter looking at the World's Fairs, question them, and then just linger, hang around. Many people get stuck in the questioning phase far longer than they should. It seems that it works mostly by subtraction. It clears away the stories, assumptions, and any rules we picked up without thinking. That process can feel liberating because it brings real clarity. You start seeing the contradictions, the incentives, and even the patterns that were always there, but they were just invisible. And have you heard someone say we must forget everything we know about the past? Subtract, subtract, and again subtract. Removing old defaults, yet having no framework to install better ones. Why? It seems because everything must be relentlessly questioned and no framework can be trusted. Unless it's a slideshow of imagery, then we're golden. This new clarity is treated as the finish line. In truth, that clarity is just the starting point, and without deliberate rebuilding of sorts, this newfound awareness becomes fragile. People at this stage often feel intellectually ahead. They see unnecessary debates and predictable conflicts, and they know the obvious flaws that everyone else misses. But this insight by itself doesn't create movement. Knowing how a system is built doesn't give you the power to change it. Awareness without a real position inside the system itself usually just leads to watching rather than actually participating. If you're just asking questions, if you're just holding the door open for others to see in, if you're just there to usher people in without a map, then what is your position? Something is afoot, but whether it's left or right is unknown. This leads to a sort of porter position, a doorman, an analyst rather than an actor. The positions are seen with clarity, yet the distance keeps it disengaged just enough so the mechanisms are not investigated, the ones that shape outcomes. It's one thing to know how the game is played, quite another to be on the field putting in the work. It's easy to scream from the sidelines. Another aspect that becomes muddy are the morals that come with the territory. We see the contradictions and then rigid boundaries are adopted. The flexibility of sourcing various materials becomes problematic. It's the narrative, it's the controllers, it's the hidden hand. And you know what? Maybe it is. Yet it will not be investigated because it's deemed tarnished. From my understanding, there are trade-offs. The nuance and complexity of history comes with trade-offs, rather than this hard-line absolutism. What I've seen on this journey into alternative history, and especially with this event, is this formation of identity that happens. When the questioning becomes your identity, your awareness doesn't necessarily evolve upward, and more just horizontally into a pattern. Your ability to be flexible vanishes. Growth becomes almost stagnant because any adaptation or alteration to the questioning, to the identity, is a threat. In my opinion, that's why the advocates of Tartaria, or the old world, won't touch literature, or even what is essentially a kryptonite being the industry of artificial stone. There is no investigation into engineering, into construction, into the classical orders, into architecture itself, because that very investigation could threaten the self-definition. Have you watched someone who has essentially remained in the same state or area of research, often repeating the same ideas, the same slogans, and giving similar general insights over years without any real evolution? Does this sound familiar? And I know there are some of you out there that are nodding. I see you. I know you are, because I've seen it too. And so here's the main point I'm getting at, is that those in power, whatever label you wish to give them, they understand this type of thinking also, but they reform it. They operate differently. They enter, extract what is essential or useful, and move forward. Because extending this phase of ambiguity is useless. It provides no benefit, and essentially weakens the ability to be decisive. The awareness that is garnered is treated as a phase, and not a permanent residence. There is an order of operations, so to speak, and the deconstruction process is then followed by a reconstruction process. Your ability to question and find the inconsistencies is matched with an ability to build systems that allow for learning and then flexibility upon that. You must choose the structure that gets replaced, or you will inherit one, and I see this constantly. Lingering in this void of endless questions. Question everything, which I was in initially as well. It starts to feel like it leads to this drifting sensation or area I felt this. It felt like the various people I watched initially were continually asking questions, but not necessarily building upon any information given, largely because nothing was ever trusted. Discipline should be used as a tool to reintroduce constraints based on the research you have done. You build it as a tool, rather than a restriction. The questioning mentality can remove illusions and false assumptions, yet it only really gains traction and power once you combine that initial awareness with some disciplined rebuilding. Awareness is necessary. It is not sufficient. It kind of seems like remaining in this limbo or liminal space of eternal questioning gets somewhat shaky or unsettling over a period of time. There is the urge to continually question, but nothing seems to count as evidence, except what fits the desired outcome. The structure is weak because there is no foundation. It's been dismantled and even becomes prey to, let's say, external inputs. The ideas get reinforced by comments, by habits, by a community of like-minded questioners. The incentives that rush in begin to shape a mold. It alters the behavior. So is this then the new framework? I've said this before. Those claiming that believing the narrative is foolish. Yet when the questions have stripped away the original defaults, another system has replaced it. One that perpetually turns in place, continually asking and not ever solving those questions, or even building a system to answer them. But hey, we're just asking questions, right? Right. Forever spinning in limbo. The absence of structure does not really create neutrality. It seems to create maybe a vulnerability. I think it could be described as this unintentional adaptation. This drifting of frameworks slide back into the very systems you are trying to escape, rather than giving you any real control. Staying in this open, questioning limbo for too long hurts your ability to get things done. When you question every single belief, but don't replace them with a working framework, everything slows down. Because committing to anything can feel, dangerous. The decisions, they're heavy. You may hear folks say discovering these ideas are liberating, and initially they are. But has it evolved past that initial stage? I don't know if it has. And those that understand this idea, they know this trap well. It's not meant to be a spot to hang out. Effectiveness in this space requires some form of closure, even if only for a short time. Temporary, let's say. A sliver of provisional certainty lets you move forward. It's movement forward, upward. And that movement can then give real-world feedback, to improve, to refine. The reconstruction is not about going back to the old beliefs you may have discarded, yet it seems that most don't delve deep into these ideas to understand them more. The outside perspective seems more polished, critique often invisible, as if watching a magic trick and then believing the trick in its entirety rather than moving behind the wizard to see the trick in context. For example, why carve stone in elaborate shapes and ornamental detail when they can be cast? Why shape a cornice when it can be shaped with a mold? If a stone is investigated under a microscope and the artificial cannot be discerned from the natural, how can boots on the ground research dispel the literature, especially if you don't know what you're looking at? Even the initial episode in this series was based on my ignorance of photo retouching, an area which would be considered in my field. It was based on a poor semantic argument, yet it still remains the most popular video on the channel. It was a poor attempt, but it is there to show growth. A carpenter today can't comprehend how to frame out masonry buildings from the past. A mason cannot comprehend the engineering methods of those before. It's easy to look back and say we don't do this anymore. It's true, and it's a shame we do not. That does not mean we cannot or did not. That is why delving into these topics provides background. From the inside of this research, influence becomes possible. It's one thing to make oppositional claims externally. Coming to an alternative conclusion from the inside of these topics can reshape outcomes more reliably. So, dive in. Get your hands dirty. The distance feels safer because it is, and it also removes any leverage. Clean hands don't shape systems. That's why I say it's for you to decide, and for you to research yourself, because that's the catalyst, the transitional point. It decides whether awareness becomes something useful or something that holds you back. When the newfound insight doesn't turn into some practical change, it can start working against you. Instead of helping you act more clearly, it drives overthinking. Every choice gets dissected, and every step gets second-guessed. Kind of paradox, it seems, in a way. Your mind gets incredibly good at spotting problems and all the little details in the imagery, but incredibly bad at solving them. In the real world, no choice ever comes with complete information. Waiting until everything is certain is just another way of stepping aside. I would encourage those that watch and listen to my presentations to keep learning and be effective on developing some sort of procedure or operating parameters to decipher these ideas and info. Look for alternatives to get immediate feedback, ideas that counter or oppose yours. Feedback has to come quickly. You have to feel the actual consequences of your choices. Otherwise, the old patterns simply keep running in the background. This is uncomfortable though, and it's why many won't test their own ideas. It's safer to be consumed with, well, safety, and even social reinforcement like I mentioned earlier. New behaviors become solid when the people around you mirror them, reward them. All the comments, the community, all adding fuel to this fire. Trying to change while surrounded by an environment that constantly pulls you back to your old defaults creates endless resistance. Over time, that resistance can and most likely will wear you down, and then fatigue just takes over. So sticking in the awareness stage is better because it hits. It's fast, it's urgent. Another image, another speculative claim. Look at all the supposed evidence. It's the drip of dopamine. So many images, so little time. That's why AI is cleaning up in this area. It's an easy framework to mimic. Again, I encourage you to find those that progress and treat framework as temporary, useful right now, but replaceable when it stops working. They don't cling to ideas to protect them, they test them in reality. They're ready to let go of whatever used to define them if it no longer delivers results. That is why this series has evolved the way it has. The original direction, the original speculation provided no actual evidence. The many theories online proved to be nothing more than smoke and mirrors. I found that uncovering specific data does not matter in most cases anyways. It is hand-waved away as nothing more than fabrications and narrative filler. Yet there are many who have followed through with me, challenging their own ideas and perspectives, and challenging even what I say, which is good, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate those watching, and those who have stuck around since the beginning. That is why these episodes, these presentations, have now shifted to those that are still willing to see the data and change their frameworks. If you're still watching, still listening, that is surely you. So I will again present another piece of this puzzle before moving forward. It's titled the World's Fair Expenditures Report, and it's issued by the United States House Committee on Appropriations. It was published by the Government Printing Office in 1892 and collects the committee's report on money spent for the world's Columbian Exposition. It includes testimony, exhibits, and supporting accounting material submitted at committee hearings. So why documents like this matter is because they are records that pertain to itemized expenditures, line-by-line money outlays, and supporting documents. We also have testimony from officials and witnesses, sworn or recorded hearings explaining decisions and purchases, and also committee findings and recommendations moving forward, the conclusions to inform Congress and the public. Now, this all sounds well and good, yet this is government documentation at the end of the day. It would not be beneficial to completely exclude it because of the source. However, to believe that there would be no bending of the truth, fabrications, or possible deceptions would also be utterly naive. It's important to take information like this and put it under the microscope, like our framework suggests. It is linked below and encourage more investigation. I'm only one person and can't go through every aspect or detail. It's only a piece of the puzzle. Yet the one piece for this example are the payrolls for employees. Here are the pages, and pages of employees. We have numbers on salaries, compensation, dates of employment, nature of duties, and even the states or territories that they were appointed from. We have hundreds here, thousands of names. How about this section pertaining to the construction aspect of this event? Again, pages of info. I'll now explain why this in particular is important. This document provides evidence against many of these alternative ideas. Where are the workers? Who are they? Well, here are some, maybe not all, but a substantial amount. And what this document provides is a bulwark of data for anyone to overcome before spinning a tale of lost civilization or old world structures. You see, there is a law known as Brandolini's law. Basically, it's easier to make a bogus claim than it is to gather monumental amounts of data to disprove it. I've also come across this interesting idea of Hitchens' razor, which is considered a philosophical or knowledge-based razor, or tool, I suppose. It states, what can be asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. I'm going to propose an idea here, so let's see what you think. It's easy to state that this event, these structures, may have been older, may have been refurbished. There may be more to the story. That then requires a monumental amount of data to definitely refute this claim. It requires much of the data that is constantly requested in comments, and some even on my own videos. Where are the blueprints? Where are the journals? Where are the documents, the plans, the records, and so on? So here's the deal. Does Brandolini's law also work in reverse, let's say? Here we have some records. Here is a wall of names, of departments, of companies associated with the world's Columbian Commission, and in relation to the exposition itself. Therefore, is there not some serious work to do here? A mountain of research may be required to then confirm if these individuals, these departments, these companies have related correspondence in other publications of the time, if they are indeed real. They must all be systematically investigated, and all corresponding evidence that may reference these individuals also. This then goes beyond a simple statement of mystery. It requires so much substantial evidence. And that is maybe the crux here, isn't it? If we can find some information on these entities, but not all of them, where does that lead us? It doesn't really move the needle in any direction. It does show that there is evidence, but the lack of evidence or the details that cannot be obtained will certainly be used as a counter. Maybe this is just historical research in general. Yet there may also be the comment of these being falsified. These books. Which then increases not only the feat itself, but adds an additional mountain of evidence to provide of how this falsification could be accomplished, by whom, and how was this deception completed without the help of external forces? Do we have the originals? Do we have any documents hinting at this deception? Did no one notice? How? So maybe the question should be reversed. Instead of asking where the journals are for the builders, for the fairgoers, for everyone in that time period, where are the journals for the alternative? Where are the journals, the writings, the papers of those who witnessed this takeover, who lived through the reset, who are organizing against this cabal that recently acquired all of this infrastructure, who have been thrown into asylums, who understand the effects and technology of said architecture? Where are those documents? So does this then bring forward Hitchens' razor? If it can be asserted without evidence, it's pretty easy to dismiss it without evidence too. Yes, it's easy to mock how quote-unquote well-documented the history we have is. Laugh it up. But then failing to provide no alternate framework shows how empty these ideas truly are. Or maybe there is a few slideshows I need to catch up on. In my opinion, this is why those who stay in spectator mode for years often sound more and more certain, while their theories and talking points and videos stay stagnant. The awareness gradually fades into nothing more than commentary. No matter how accurate or insightful the commentary is, it doesn't shift outcomes. It only describes what's already happening. And that's why I believe this area is largely a psyop. It's a hamster wheel for the curious. When the awareness isn't turned into structured action, the mind starts replacing real movement with storytelling. As I've said multiple times, trading one narrative for another. That's why reconstruction has to be built on rules, not feelings. Without these protocols, awareness starts to eat away at you. It can be corrosive. Either awareness is converted into some sort of leverage, or it calcifies into identity. One leads to movement, the other leads to repetition, and repetition over time becomes indistinguishable from stagnation. The longer you stay without any structure, the harder it becomes to build momentum again. Awareness that gets applied even imperfectly starts to stabilize and build on itself. It's something. This is the true dividing line, not between people who see clearly and those who don't, but between those who pass through awareness as a phase and those who settle into it as a permanent home. Yes, the ornamental stone details are striking, and wrought ironwork is exceptional. The woodwork is top tier, but if you don't investigate how it may have been completed, the manufacturers, the techniques, the systems that were in place, what are you actually doing? The work stops being about gathering more understanding. It's just commentary from the outskirts. And no matter how sharp this commentary from the outside sounds, it usually stays shallow. Once you're actually inside and delving into the data, filtering, that feedback becomes immediate and real, or more real anyways. It stops being an abstract idea and gains more clarity. And this is exactly why staying in an unprogrammed, unstructured state for too long is risky. It postpones this grounding process. It leaves people hanging in endless critique. If you stay in this state for too long, the world itself will quietly reprogram you anyways, automatically, without asking, and usually in ways that serve the existing systems rather than your own goals. This ties in with the latest episode discussing Edward Bernays and his book called Propaganda, where leaders are not necessarily created, but they are used to disseminate information. They say jump, and you say how high. When it comes to the Columbian Exposition, the various narratives that are pushed online lack substance, lack evidence. At one time, claims were made that even construction images didn't exist. Again, subtraction. Evidence doesn't exist because it's too much work to actually investigate. Once that data is found, it either does not matter, it is refused, or it is quietly considered and the goalpost shifts. And here's the thing, I know many that listen are open to these ideas, are just open in general. You simply want to know, want some semblance of truth. And that's what I want too, some sort of answer. And if you're still here, after watching the entire series, I mean, that's exceptional. Because I've lost many subs due to the nature of how this series has shifted. They join from the early episodes and then just peace out once the tone shifts. And what does that tell you? Am I wrong for trying to grow and change? Or am I wrong for turning my back on previous ideas? This spiel of a presentation is just some perspective. It's my perspective. It's what I see happening and hopefully can provide, I don't know, some insight, some tools to help others. It's the perspective of a fool who has spent many hours, too many hours, on one event in this weird niche of alternative history. And like I mentioned, this isn't about going back to the old beliefs or just falling back on the narrative. It's having the ability to change perspectives with new data. Enter the arena, challenge, pivot with new tactics, and move forward. The World's Columbian Exposition is indeed an entry point into these discussions, into the area of alternative history. And I hope that these videos have shed some light on this event in various aspects. How narratives certainly have been stretched. How what we see is a misdirection in many ways. They are not the end goal though. If those investigating these events are still banging on about the expositions, that they are somehow from a previous era, after years, then where is that data? What will you replace all of this narrative with? A hope? A prayer? A fart in the wind? I mean, if you truly have been investigating these events, where are the fingerprints of the civilization before? Or are those fingerprints merely us, and we simply cannot comprehend how those before used to craft, used to build, used to create? I've shown that this event was not completed at the time of opening. It may never have been completed. So again here, the imagery, the manipulated imagery, is once again not as reliable as advertised, yet it must be accounted for, not one or the other. These theories are covering for something. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I have an idea and maybe that's worth another video. It is the deliberate destruction of past achievements, of knowledge, of literature. Why is the real question. I don't necessarily know, but I can tell you this. It's easy to be the destroyer, to dismiss, to erase, to completely denigrate those that came before. Just like all of those names in the expense report. Subtraction to the point of obliteration. What an astounding operation. And maybe it is hiding something larger. It's a smokescreen to cover a real, detectable decline. A decline of an empire, maybe. So, if you have an interest in these subjects, build systems to test what is said. Be a creator. Contribute. Research. Get your hands dirty. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. I hope this talk helped in some meaningful way. On to the next one.